Welcome to a new Smart Money video on mental models. How to use the way that you look at the world and think about things in order to succeed. And I'm not just talking about lucky, once-off success, but I'm talking about month after month, year after year success, which is sustainable and grows into an inheritance and an ability to affect your community in a positive way. These mental models determine whether you will succeed or fail in life. And we're going to look at two different people, Peter and John, in order to study and understand three critical mental models that the top 1% use to continue to stay ahead in the game of success and money in life. Whereas the middle class and the poor do not use these mental models at all. They actually take the complete opposite route. And so this is one of the key determinants as to whether you will be successful or not. So who are Peter and John? John comes from a middle-class family. He studied and did well in college and got a reasonable job after he left school. Peter, on the other hand, went to the very best university and out of school went straight into a high-paying job. As the story develops about Peter and John, we're going to see three key mental models coming along. And as they get exposed, you will see the effect in Peter's life and in John's life, in the rich kid's life and in the middle-class kid's life. And the interesting thing is, which of these is going to succeed? Is the knowledge that John got and the various different training that his mother and father gave him going to help him to succeed? Or will he be caught in the same trap of middle-class life that his parents were? Will Peter, simply by growing up in a rich family and not spending a lot of time with his parents because they were so busy working, be enough to ensure that he succeeds? That's what we will unfold as we look and analyze at their lives and the particular three mental models which the rich apply to succeed and the poor and middle class don't. So now Peter, as he started his job, was earning good money, could play and have fun, go to lots of parties, rented himself a really nice place, filled it up with a lot of goods. However, the money didn't last long and he couldn't earn enough to satisfy or to live anywhere close to the way he lived before when he stayed with his rich parents. John, on the other hand, got a modest place and started to save a little bit of money. He didn't have amazing experiences before, and so he didn't even know that one could spend their money on such things. However, both Peter and John arrived at the same conclusion. Working their current jobs, the ones they got straight out of university and college, were not good enough, and they began to look for another job. And this opened up the first opportunity for us to evaluate a mental model. For Peter, he went and he looked for the very best job, the one which paid him the highest salary, and in fact found one which would double his annual income. And that's the job he pursued. Whereas John looked at the jobs and started to realize that actually none of them were ever going to satisfy the amount of money he needed to get financial independence that his parents had been telling him about and warning him to work towards. This meant that John rather took the savings that he had been accumulating whilst working in that first job and started a business. For John starting the business, he accidentally stumbled across the first mental model, and it is one called risk to reward. What it is that for every opportunity there is a risk, but for every risk there is opportunity. And the key principle or mental model that the rich use is that they evaluate opportunities through this paradigm. It means that they think about the opportunity. How much is this going to cost me? What is the worst that can happen? What is the downside? And then what is the upside? What could I get in return? And is what I get in return worth what I am risking? Now, John was not aware of this, so he took all of his savings and put it into an online store idea that he had. He had three key products. Two of them failed dismally and wiped out most of his sales. The last one, however, actually did quite well, and it saved the day for him. He came out at the end of the month with just enough money to reinvest back into that one product which worked, and he discarded the other two. He then continued to grow his online business from there until it gave him a modest income, not much more than what he was earning from the job that he got first out of college, but he now had a lot more time on his hands. Peter, on the other hand, did not take much risk at all. He went for the steady job, the low risk option, and for the money. So he went low risk and got a low reward. He got an increase, but that was the last increase he got for the next year. Over the next year, he worked really hard, but didn't see an increase in his income. He became very frustrated again and looked to move jobs. At this point, Peter and John met each other. They met each other one day when John was busy looking at a particular worksite to rent a little bit of space to put his online business into. It was a big step for him, and now, having learnt the mental model of risk versus reward, he weighed up the cost of the rent, as well as having his additional staff somewhere to stay rather than being at home, and figured out that the increase in productivity and the coherentness of the team was worth it. He would take the risk. He met Peter in the canteen, and one day over lunch, Peter was complaining about the food. He said it was so terrible, it really wasn't great food. In fact, in this whole office park, there is nothing great to eat at all. John, on the other hand, didn't hear the problem. He heard an opportunity. And then John began to think, well, what if I set up a business? And I could then set up a sandwich business and selling sandwiches. Perhaps what I could do is make extra money from that and pay for my rent here. And then I have now got two businesses. So he worked out the costs. Having learned the lesson of risk to reward, he worked out how much money he would need to risk in order to trial the business, the sandwich business, and provide better food to those in the office park. He went and spoke to the necessary people and set up a little business for the next 2 weeks. Peter kept complaining about how bad the food in the office park was. John built a business. This is the second mental model. Rich see opportunities rather than problems. The poor and middle class see problems. You see, every problem is another person's opportunity. If you can solve a problem for someone, they will probably be willing to pay you for that solution. And so that is a key mental model to look at the world at, to understand that if you are able to solve problems rather than just talk about them, that you will be able to increase in success. And so that is exactly what John did. He took the opportunity, he measured the risk, and therefore was able to start the business. Now, what happened? Did his business succeed or fail? Well, to start with, the business actually did quite well. But then John ran into a massive problem. He stopped being able to do both businesses at once. The food business was demanding a lot of time and the online store was demanding a lot of time. He didn't have the right people in place and it was all a bit of a mess. He wasn't sure what to focus on or what not to focus on. And this is where mental model number 3 comes in. It's critical, and what the rich do is that they prioritize what is an urgent and important thing to do versus what is just urgent or just important. Because it's really critical that we focus on urgent and important things first, and then focus on the important things. And the things which are urgent but not important, well, actually, if you can find someone else to do it, or if you can just completely walk away and not do it at all, that's great. And for anything that's not urgent or not important, well, that's called a hobby, that's called Netflix or Google or YouTube, and just having fun. And so John was really struggling one day when he shared at lunchtime with Peter how he was struggling to balance things out. Peter remembered something that his rich father had said and shared with him the urgent and important model of life. Peter and John began to just work through the things in John's life, and the two of them started to actually become quite good friends. Peter helped John think through the circumstances and how to manage his business as an external person, using a lot of his solid education to help him. John, on the other hand, continued to prosper and now had 2 really strong businesses, bringing in double the income that he had earned in that first year straight out of college. And so we see that at the end of the tale, John is beginning to prosper and succeed. He is becoming rich and creating multiple streams and sources of income, whereas Peter, although he has some of the right knowledge, is missing some of the key mental models in order to succeed. So let's recap on the 3 mental models. Number 1, the first mental model that the rich use and the poor and middle class don't is risk versus reward. Always think about your opportunities in terms of risk and reward. What is going to give you the best reward for the minimum amount of risk? Nothing is void of risk. There is always risk, but make sure the upside to that risk is worth it, and then take that opportunity. Mental model number 2 is all about how you frame the world. Do you see problems or opportunities? If you see problems, great, flip it, it's an opportunity. Think about, how can I make money from this problem? Mental model number 3 is about how you prioritize your life. You break it up into urgent and important, and you find each task, which one is urgent and which one is important, and which one is both. That helps you to focus in on the real priorities, on the things which are going to make a difference, a big difference in your life and in your businesses. So where does this leave us? Well, with John and Peter, we're going to get back to them in a later video on some more mental models. For you, the key is to keep a diary. Write some notes, reflect, read over them. That will start to expose your mental models and the way you're looking at the world. Remember to look at your notes through these 3 models. I'm now going to link to a video on smart hustles, and basically this is just some ideas which you can turn into a business. You can take these very mental models and apply them to that video, to the ideas in that video. Please do remember to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying it, and share this video with someone so that together we can create an abundance.